Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I want you to imagine something for a second. You're sitting in a darkened theater, waiting for the show to start. And suddenly, a colossal mechanical structure roars to life right in front of you. The sheer scale of it literally hits you in the chest. All around you, people are gasping. I mean, some are clutching their armrests in genuine suspense, while others are openly weeping at the sheer emotional and visual magnitude of what they're seeing. It's intense. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the 1980s stagecraft that completely re-engineered Broadway, turning traditional plays into these monumental, hydraulic-powered spectacles.
Okay, let's dive into this. What exactly does it take to make a theater audience physically gasp? Well, for decades, audiences were perfectly used to just suspending their disbelief, right? They accepted painted backdrops and simple wooden props as stand-ins for reality, but in the 1980s, the goalpost totally moved. Theatergoers were suddenly waiting in the dark for something that didn't just suggest the location, but physically overwhelmed them, with blinding lights, deafening sounds, and massive moving machinery. We're looking at the era that changed live entertainment forever.
Here's our roadmap for the explainer today. First, the mega musical era. Then, the tech revolution. Third, engineering the spectacle. Fourth, the big three. And finally, a spectacular legacy. Starting us off, Section 1, the mega musical era. Let's define exactly what this 1980s event was. So a mega musical, which is sometimes called a pop opera, is basically a massive, high-tech spectacle. It's built on epic stories and pop-infused scores, and it's engineered from the ground up to be a massive global event. At the absolute center of this theatrical movement were a few key creators, Andrew Lloyd Webber and the incredible team of Claude Michel Schonberg and Alain Boublil. And the thing is, these creators didn't just want to write traditional musicals. They wanted to build theatrical empires that completely transcended language and geography. To pull this off, there were essentially three foundational pillars that made these shows work. First up, you had epic, sweeping stories. We're talking about massive themes here: revolutions, tragic romances, the fall of entire cities. Second, pop-infused, soaring musical scores that would literally stick in your head for days. And third, and honestly most importantly for our explainer today, a massive, high-tech visual spectacle. These pillars were so strong that the shows became instantly recognizable by just a single, iconic image. Think of a white mask or a tattered flag. They were heavily branded, global commodities.
Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds into the tech revolution, upgrading stage hardware.
So, the crucial point is really seeing the contrast between the old and the new. Just think about pre-1980s stagecraft. For generations, Broadway relied on much simpler scenery, backdrops painted on canvas, sets literally pushed on and off stage by stagehands. Ambition was strictly limited by human physical constraints and, well, gravity. But then, the 1980s revolution happens. Suddenly, the theater was adopting the kind of technology you'd expect to see in heavy industry. We're talking about computerized lighting boards, entirely automated scenery running on tracks, and most importantly, advanced hydraulics. For the very first time, theatrical ambition wasn't limited by physics because the technology had finally caught up with the creators' wildest dreams. But you might be wondering, why did this massive shift happen specifically in the 1980s? Well, it was kind of a perfect storm. First, as we just saw, the tech finally caught up with the ambition. Second, globalization hit Broadway. Producers realized, hey, we could run a show in New York, London, Tokyo, and Sydney simultaneously using the exact same heavy machinery for identical staging everywhere. Third, theatrical marketing really became a brand. And fourth, audiences were just hungry for huge spectacles. I mean, think about it. The 1980s was the decade of big hair, big arena rock concerts, and massive blockbuster movies. Live theater absolutely had to compete, and it did that by becoming gigantic. Let's dig into the details in Section 3, Engineering the Spectacle. This is where hydraulics become the co-star. I absolutely love this quote. If you can dream it, build it. And if you build it, make it spectacular. This basically became the unofficial philosophy of the set designers and engineers of the era. They weren't just out there decorating a stage, they were building real mechanical marvels meant to evoke genuine awe and sometimes terror from a live audience sitting just a few feet away.
Let's look at our first major case study. In 1986, The Phantom of the Opera premiered, and its defining feature wasn't just some background prop, but a massive, glittering chandelier suspended directly over the audience's heads. At the climax of the first act, that huge structure actually plunged from the ceiling, aggressively swooping down toward the stage. And this wasn't a gentle lowering. It was a highly engineered freefall that relied on heavy-duty wire rigging and super-precise automation. It provided this visceral, heart-stopping thrill that proved, without a doubt, this was a brand new era of loud, physically ambitious staging. It felt dangerous, it was thrilling, and it was entirely powered by modern mechanics.
Then we have Les Misérables, which opened in 1985. The engineers for this show created something truly groundbreaking, a massive rotating barricade. Now, this wasn't just a static set piece. Using advanced hydraulics and motorized turntables, this towering structure of wood and iron spun, rose up from the floor, collapsed inward, and reassembled itself right before the audience's eyes. The machinery here wasn't just for shock value, it was actual storytelling. The automated movement of the barricade gave the stage the cinematic fluidity of a movie camera. It could sweep smoothly from a gritty street battle to a tragic death scene, all without the curtain ever needing to drop.
And wow, if Phantom and Les Mis brought the house down, Miss Saigon literally brought a chopper into the theater. To depict the chaotic fall of Saigon, the engineers designed a full-scale helicopter that descended from the rafters directly onto the stage. It featured violently spinning blades, blinding searchlights, and deafening theater-rattling sound design. It delivered an absolute visceral punch to the gut. It made the terror and chaos of that evacuation feel undeniably real to the audience. This level of mechanical immersion, it was simply impossible just a decade prior.
Which brings us to Section 4, the Big Three. Let's summarize these defining mechanical feats. And this brilliantly illustrates how deeply linked the art and the engineering became during this time. For Phantom, it's the falling chandelier. For Les Mis, the rotating barricade. And for Miss Saigon, the flying helicopter. Honestly, you didn't even need to know the plot. People were literally buying tickets just to see the machine in action.